All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is episode 34 of the Yellow Card Podcast. Yellow Card Podcast presented to you by Couch Guy Sports. If you haven't checked out Couch Guy Sports, I recommend that you do so. It's couchguysports.com. Check out also their store, couchguysportshop.com as well. And hey, follow all the writers, follow all the content there coming out daily. Lots of content. In fact, I think we might have just hit a milestone for our network with over 40,000 views in a month. So, hey, if you haven't checked it out, get familiar with that network. Welcome to episode 34. As you may have noticed, if you're watching this, we have an additional chair with us today. We're super excited to have her, and she is super knowledgeable in the game. So, listen, with so much that happened this past week, we need more brain power up in here. So we needed to bring her in here. Her name is Zane. If you guys are not familiar with her, I recommend that you get familiar like immediately because she is brilliantly talented in the subject. Zane, why don't you introduce yourself to our followers?
Yeah, thank you, Diego. My name is Zane. You can find me on Twitter and YouTube as Zane Talks Sports. I'm a Liverpool fan, so I mainly only talk about Liverpool. I mention some other football teams and topics as well, but the main focus is Liverpool. Yeah, I'm not the oldest fan. I'm quite a recent fan of football in general. Like I used to not like football, but then I kind of fell in love with it, and it's my favorite sport right now. And yeah, I'm just in the beginning of this whole journey, but yeah, it's a good one so far.
Amazing. And I love the fact that you actually call it football and not like, in Colombia, like at least myself, I always called it football. In America, it's the first country I come to where it's soccer. Yeah. I'm like, oh, what is that?
Yeah, I know.
But anyways, we're super glad to have you. We're gonna just dive right into it. European Super League, the massive chaos that took the whole entire world by storm, created a lot of drama. Fans went absolutely bonkers. But at the end of the day, the game was created by the poor, made better by the fans, and almost stolen by the rich, but they couldn't get away with murder here. We're gonna get into it. So I'm gonna ask, Andrew. Andrew, why don't you explain to all of us here what the concept was of the European Super League, and we'll dive into that conversation from there.
Yeah, sure. So I'm not exactly sure what day it was now. I think it was maybe Sunday or Monday. Sunday. Okay. So kind of early on the day on Sunday, the news broke from a couple different outlets that there was a pending announcement about a European Super League to be formed. In the end, as the day progressed, it turned out there were 12 founding clubs, they called themselves, that were involved. 6 English clubs, which is particularly notable to our podcast since we spend a lot of time talking about the Premier League. Also clubs from Spain and Italy as well. In particular, Real Madrid with President Florentino Perez was a big driving force of the project. And sort of as the day went on and more details came out, soccer fans started to realize, this is not at all what we want to see our teams be involved in. Basically, the plan was to have 15 permanent members in the European Super League, couldn't get relegated, didn't have to qualify through position in their domestic leagues or anything like that. And then an additional 5 teams that would be invited by the founding members who would also be in control of the league. So it wouldn't be like the Premier League or the Champions League where there's a governing body and then clubs in the league. The clubs in the league would actually be in control of the league as well. So kind of a conflict of interest right off the bat as well. And then also it turned out that there was going to be huge amounts of money going to those founding clubs. JP Morgan was going to be backrolling it, I believe. So essentially, the clubs tried to pass it off as like a new exciting project to see the best teams in the world play each other every week, but fans kind of saw through that and realized it was a way for these rich owners to basically protect their investments and try and make sure that those 12 clubs or 15 clubs, as they hoped, would stay atop the pyramid and be the most powerful clubs in Europe and basically not allow any other clubs to reach their level. So thankfully, it has since fallen apart. I believe it was Chelsea and Man City who sort of started the push of clubs withdrawing from the league. But now, a week on, the whole thing is basically dissolved. Luckily, I think from the perspective of pretty much any fan who likes watching club soccer in Europe.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Andrew. So yeah, as Andrew alluded, I mean, basically a bogus league where the richer get richer and the poor have no sense in the matter here. Just a very controversial thing, and to be quite honest, I think I'm gonna kick it off to the two of you Liverpool fans, because Liverpool was kind of heavily in the center of things, in my opinion, especially with the Fenway Sports Group and our beloved Red Sox as well here in Boston. I know that the ownership came out and made an apology, but I think from the reception of at least the players, Jurgen Klopp, who had to deal with the fans basically shouting at him how bad he sucked or whatever, which I thought was just awful. From the two of you, I'm gonna kick it off to Chris. I'm gonna kick it off to Zane after that. Perception. How do you fans from Liverpool kind of need to regain that trust from the ownership and know that the future of Liverpool is safe at their hands?
I think the first step has already been taken. That was accountability. Obviously, the Fenway Sports Group wanted to try and progress the game as far as they can go, but also what they didn't realize that they were doing is they did it when they decided that they were going to go ahead with the Super League. They decided that they weren't going to notify their players and they weren't going to notify their coaches or anything like that. That was the big mistake of it all. So I think the trust factor between coaches and ownership and players and ownership definitely needs to be reinvented again. But at the same time, you look at it, and if I'm not mistaken, the only owner that has put out a public apology was John Henry of the Fenway Sports Group. So he realized shortly after the big mistake that he made, in my opinion. And I think that it'll be put behind rather quickly. But at the same time, there are consequences and other things that will be taken into account by the Premier League based off of what they and the other 5 teams did when they accepted the invitation to the Super League originally.
All right. What about you, Zane? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't really agree that this will be forgotten quickly, because as most of us know, it's not the first time when they've done things which didn't go well with the fans, starting off with wanting to trademark Liverpool name, which in England, it's just not the way how it goes. Then they wanted to raise the ticket prices, which caused massive fan walkout in the game. Then they wanted to furlough all the staff of Liverpool FC just in the middle of the pandemic. And now this creation of the European Super League. I do agree with Klopp that it's better to work out the issues with people you know, rather than to have new people. But I think with fans, like, they are quite divided now. Many of us are accepting the apology, many of us are not. Like, it's good that he put the apology out. However, I don't think it's sincere, but he did it, so that's at least okay. But I think if he manages to get back to Liverpool and to Anfield, he will have a horrible time with fans, because I don't think they will forgive and forget. It might be too hard to go and sell Liverpool right now, but because I think they're valued at around $3 billion dollars or something like that, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I think they have 1 or 2 years and they might have to find a buyer because it might get too difficult for them to manage the situation.
Sure. No, that's a very valid point, and I appreciate you bringing up the previous incidents too, like the furloughing and all that stuff. That's certainly there's a history back there as well. At least for me, from Manchester United standpoint, I mean, there was a lot of anger in all of us fans because it was a team that really was starting to just kind of jive together again after a very long time. I think the repercussions of this, now having Ed Woodward resign as vice chairman of the club, which was the biggest, I think, in my opinion, almost the biggest news of the whole entire thing. I think now having the Glazers basically just only write an apology rather than make it publicly, I think in itself, it doesn't really entail what damage was done there. I think it was actually incredibly great of seeing some of the players too step up to their role and really show that they're the leaders of the whole entire club. I mean, we saw Jordan Henderson take a leadership step and kind of combine all the captains from all the soccer teams in the Premier League and get a meeting together. Harry Maguire and Luke Shaw stood up face to face to Joel Glazer and being like, "No, you're not the person that's running this club. It's the fans that run this club. You get it together. What are you doing?" And eventually led to Ed Woodward out. And I think, at least from a Manchester United standpoint, I think we could be seeing ourselves changing ownership by the next 3 to 5 years. I don't think it's going to be anytime sooner than that, just because the Glazers have a contract for another 5 years or so, if I'm not mistaken. We also saw Chelsea, which they were one of the very first ones to pull out too. Roman Abramovich, which we all know how arrogant this guy can really be. Taking pretty much that leadership role and be like, "No, my fans do not want this. My club doesn't want this. I don't know what you were pitching to me, but it's not the product that I fell for." That was impressive, I think, in my opinion. I don't know if you guys would agree with that, considering the history with Chelsea as well and him in ownership. You guys have anything different there on that?
I just think that the real issue with this is the owners of the 12 teams that agreed to this. The majority of them are billionaires, and you're looking at it and they're just greedy. And that's where it all came from. All throughout the pandemic, obviously, we've seen clubs struggle because of lack of ticket sales, lack of this and this and this. They struggled. Everybody did. But at the same time, these owners are just selfish. And with that $6 billion from JP Morgan that they were getting, I don't know. It's going to be hard for certain clubs to come back. Like, I agree with Zane when she said Liverpool. They might not forgive and forget right off the bat. But I think definitely the United fans definitely need the Glazer family out. And I think Real Madrid definitely needs a new head guy as well.
Yeah. So let's say theoretically, all these owners are basically starting to shift and get out of their clubs, right? So let's say, for example, Fenway Sports Group sells out Liverpool. From you two, in your perspective, who would you want as owners of Liverpool?
It's really hard to say because you have to choose the best of the bad guys, I think, because either you have oil money or you have a Russian oligarch, or I don't know. It's really hard because you can't find a person, a billionaire, who has earned all of his money without doing anything bad or without hurting people in the way. So I really don't know. I hope that in the future, maybe there would be a chance to do how we do it in Bundesliga with 50+1, where fans have power over the club and they can make the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But as it stands right now, I don't know. For now, I think we have to stick with what we got and then just see if an offer comes in, what the owners look like.
Sure. What about like the vice chairman position? Like in Manchester United, we had Ed Woodward,
Yeah.
which he's out. But who would you say, whether it was a Liverpool legend or maybe an up and coming investor, that would make sense for Liverpool?
I'm not sure. I'm not a big fan, to be fair, of football legends taking over the club, because sometimes they don't have the knowledge, they don't have what it takes to be in charge of such a big club. So I think I don't have a person in mind, but for now I think it's best to stick with what we get until there is some sort of clarity of the future.
Okay, what about you, Chris?
I mean, I just think for this club in particular, we need to make sure we find someone that is a fan of the sport and not a fan of making money because of how profitable it is. And I think that's the majority of the problem with these American billionaires that are buying the top European clubs, because all they see is dollar signs. This isn't like any of the leagues that you have in the States. Like, this is a legitimate sport. And without the sport, you don't make money off of it. With the other leagues in the state, you can make money outside of the sport. With football in Europe, you really can't. So in order for them to succeed, it needs to be someone that is a fan of the sport and wants nothing but the best for the sport. If you don't want nothing but the best for the sport, do not buy a team. Plain and simple.
All right, Andrew, what about you? What about changes in ownership through any of the 6 clubs? Because we also have Arsenal, who won Cranky out as well. Like that dude needs to be out as well. So what about you and your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I have two thoughts based on what's been said so far. The first one having to do with fans not forgetting what's going on. As a fan of one of the teams that's not a part of the 6 clubs in the Premier League that's going off, like, first off, I want to say I recognize that the fans and the players and the managers have no responsibility for what's going on. Like, this is entirely the owners. But with that being said, I do sort of feel like the owners are specifically targeting clubs like Everton, Leeds, Wolves, Leicester City, who are maybe on the verge of threatening their position as the big 6, if you want to call it that, in the Premier League. So I know, me personally, I'm definitely not going to forget what happened, because I think it's just way more about these owners looking at the money they've invested into these clubs and saying, Leicester City won the Premier League. They're starting to challenge for top 4 more regularly. We need to do something to make sure that they're not gaining money and we're not losing money, which is just the exact opposite of why I got into this sport to begin with. I like the aspect of promotion and relegation and qualifying for European competitions based on merit. So yeah, I will certainly not forget anytime soon. And I think a lot of other fans, particularly local fans who have been going to matches week in and week out and are part of the community that has formed around the club, I think people will not forget anytime soon, which I think is a good thing, to be honest. And then in terms of ownership, I really agree with the point that Zane brought up about the 50+1 model. Like, that would be my preferred method of going forward after this. I think there's a big reason why you didn't see German clubs like Dortmund and Bayern hopping onto this league, because the fans have such a strong say with that 50+1 model, where the members of the clubs sort of dictate what goes on. The problem with that, though, is I think for that to happen, the rich owners would have to be willing to take a step back. And if we've learned anything from the past week or so, it seems that would really not be too likely. So maybe that could be something where UEFA or the English Football Association would step in and say, this is something that we need to do for the good of the game, whether you like it or not. I don't know if they have the authority to do that off the top of my head, but that would be a direction that I would definitely be in favor of seeing things go after this, because to be honest with you, I don't really buy the apologies from the owners right now. I don't really think they've learned their lesson as much as they've understood that what they tried to do isn't feasible right now. So I would not be shocked if basically what I'm trying to say is I think the the organizations in charge need to make a really strong statement right now in response to what has happened. Because if if they don't, more than likely, this same sort of thing will happen again in the future with these owners.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, at least with Manchester United, like on the vice chairman position, and we're never really even was part of the club or even bothered to really play much of the game. It made no sense for him to really be in such a high position without knowing much of the game. I mean, we've gone through so many managers, with the exception of Jose Mourinho. Jose Mourinho, in my opinion, is just on his way out of the Premier League. But I think having somebody that actually breathes the essence of the club in itself, understands the club, and can actually truly inspire players around him to then build a power force, that would be fantastic. There have been rumors of potentially having somebody like Edwin van der Sar stepping into that position, which would be phenomenal. There have been even rumors about Gary Neville stepping into that, which personally for me, I love Gary. Don't think he deserves that position. I think he's fantastic at what he does right now and should stick to that. I just don't see him being a chairman by any chance. In terms of ownership, I mean, the Glazers they were the Tampa Bay Buccaneers owners before. Like what are you doing in a complete different sport that you really don't belong in? Like to both of your points and to Andrew's points, if you don't know what the sport is about, if you don't breathe the sport, you don't understand the sport, and you really don't respect the sport, all you're doing is elevating your ego and deepening your pockets at this point. So I think, at least for Manchester United, those two big positions need to make a change immediately. We know it's not going to happen overnight, but it's gonna need to be done. I applaud the efforts of somebody like Manchester City and Chelsea stepping up immediately to the plate and being the big boys to kind of lead the charge and be like, no, we're out, considering that their pockets are also pretty deep. In my opinion as well, in this whole entire thing, I actually appreciated the fact that, was it the FIFA president or was it the UEFA president, pretty much saying how he had no idea that he had snakes in the room, but they're no longer welcome.
UEFA, I think it was.
Yeah. Which, what a shot immediately to Paolo Agnelli from Juventus, considering that the two of them clearly have never gotten along, and this just made it 10 times worse. I had another question that I just can't seem to remember now. But anything else that you guys like to add about the subject?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say that I've been on one podcast lately as well, and we talked about fans or fan groups. Like, we have a couple of fan groups for Liverpool as well, having a say in the board. So, for example, in all the board meetings, we would have fan representation who would then give the owners and everyone on the board the feel what the fans really want. And I think it's really important that there is at least one or two people on the board who actually represent the fans, and then things like European Super League would never happen, because no way that fan representation would vote for something like that. So I think that is a good idea that clubs could look into.
I think we all could agree with that.
Yeah,
definitely having a fan representation for any club would be ideal. But I think the last takeaway for the Super League is that Florentino Perez will not give it up.
No,
now there's reports going around that these clubs signed a binding contract. They can't leave the league. So it goes, so literally at one point we will have the Super League, whether it's with these teams or whether it's with other teams as well. And it's saying fans don't want to boycott our Super League, we'll just create new fans. Like, dude, give it a rest. You already can't get the demographic that you want to watch the game. Why would you try to create a different narrative and be like, oh, now we can get the viewership that we want? It won't happen.
Well, so he thinks, because he thinks that 16 and 24-year-olds are no longer watching the game or no longer care for it, which I think is just extremely absurd, especially with the
16 to 24 demographic.
I was gonna say, especially with the talent that's been coming up. I mean, you got Ansu Fati, who's 19 years old, Amad Diallo, who's 19 years old. I think Liverpool has a couple of teenagers, maybe 22-year-olds in there. I just can't remember the names.
Well, Trent is under 24.
Oh, Trent. Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
Yep. I mean, the league, the whole world in itself is oozing with this new talent. How can you say that 16 to 24-year-olds are no longer watching the game? I think in my opinion, if anything, with this whole entire Super League, we could potentially see big departures from all the clubs around. I think what happened with the players and what happened with the managers are seriously making them wonder if they even want to be part of these organizations moving forward, considering that, to Chris's point, the Super League, it appears to be a project that's going to happen one way or another. Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United, and Tottenham. Do you expect any big departures out of any of these clubs, English Premier League wise?
I
Do you
mean,
think?
Harry Kane is gone. I've been saying this all year. Harry Kane's leaving Tottenham. No matter where he goes, he's not playing in Tottenham next year.
Yeah,
That's definitely the big name that we'll see leave.
what about
I
you,
do
Zane?
I think one of Liverpool's front three is probably gonna go. I didn't think it would happen, but now I kind of have a strong feeling one of them will go. I think as much as I hate it, it probably will be Mane. And I think Genie will go from Liverpool probably to Barcelona. Other than that, I think Manchester United can expect Cavani to go because he's already spoken out that he wants to leave. I'm not sure if this will happen next season, but I suppose it will. But I have questions about Aubameyang as well, and I'm not sure if he'll stay at Arsenal for long. But all the others, yeah, I agree with Kane, but I don't think anyone else.
I think the only thing with Arsenal is it's either Aubameyang or Lacazette that's leaving. Not both of them will not be on the team next year. One of them staying, one of them's going. I just don't know which one yet.
Yeah. What about you, Andrew?
Only team out of the 6 Premier League teams that I can't really imagine big name players leaving from is Manchester City. I'm not entirely sure why, but that's kind of the gut feeling that I have that they're. I think maybe what Pep came out and said has something to do with it. I think he kind of had the boldest response as the situation was unfolding. And if I was a player in this situation, I would feel betrayed by my owners, and I probably wouldn't really want to stick around. But maybe if you have your manager come out and say, you know what, I feel the same way, we're in this together, perhaps that would help keep players around a little bit more. But going back to the point that Chris made about Florentino Perez not giving up the Super League, I'd be interested in getting into the discussion a little bit about what we think would be justified punishments for the clubs involved, because there's a lot of factors at play. Certainly, I think we can all agree that this was initiated and driven by the owners. So the question that comes out of that is it fair to punish the clubs and the fans and the players as a result? So I'd be curious in hearing how you all feel about that question.
Sure. Whichever one of you two wants to go first.
Yeah, I can start. I think there needs to be punishment. I know a lot of other teams are calling for points deduction, which I don't think is fair because it hurts players, manager, and fans the most. Yeah, it might hurt the owners because, for example, in case of Liverpool or Chelsea, they wouldn't get top 4 and wouldn't get Champions League football. But if we would punish the owners directly with some hefty fines, I think that would work way better than deducting points. But I think already, like someone said, that they have to pay 300 million back for exiting the Super League, so probably they'll have to spend another 100 million or so in fines.
Yeah.
I think the big thing that we should be taking away from it is I do think that if anything, like she said, that the fines for the owners is definitely a big thing. But I think the point deduction shouldn't happen. It's not fair to the clubs that have worked hard all season long just because their owners are greedy pigs. But I think one thing that we could see that could affect the club is I do think that their transfer budget will get cut big time. I don't think these top clubs are going to have as high of a transfer budget for the summer and the January transfer window for the upcoming season. I think it's going to be the big thing that we take away from all of this.
Yeah, I personally think there was a lot of big talk going around that the Champions League was ready to kick off. Chelsea, Real Madrid, and Manchester City off of the Final Four and just hand the trophy basically to PSG. Nothing eventually happened, thankfully, because I don't think it's fair to the players there and the management staff of each of those teams. I do think, though, that one of the punishments that does need to happen is I don't think personally, while I understand it hurts the players and it hurts the management, I think the unfortunate part is that we've all learned through life that it takes that one person to kind of cause a chain reaction damage. And I think one of the things that might happen here is that none of those clubs will be welcome to the Champions League maybe next year and the year after that, with some hefty fines to fall with that. I think the other one that could happen is basically what Chris just said. I think either the transfer budgets get cut or they're not allowed to make any transfers for 2 years or so. Basically, like what Manchester City was, I think it was Manchester City or Barcelona, one of the two that were facing a while back. So that would be my opinion there. I don't think the point deduction makes sense, and I don't think any of these teams are going to get relegated from their own leagues either, just because they have so much deep investments into all those leagues.
Yeah.
What about you, Andrew?
The thing about the point deduction thing for me is even just in England, you look at a team like Barry FC, who was expelled from the EFL not too long ago after they had points deducted because their owner proved to be incompetent. So my question with that would be, why is it okay to do that to a smaller team a couple rungs down the ladder, but now when it's the biggest teams that are making the most money, somehow that punishment isn't fair anymore? So I don't really know, to be honest. I think I wouldn't not necessarily be opposed to seeing point deductions. I think fines would be the big one.
No, that makes sense because which team do you support?
I'm an Everton fan.
Yeah, so it makes sense
Get
to
him.
you.
Yeah, I mean,
Get him.
but what I'm trying to say is I don't think it's fair for a team like Barry. Like, if the argument is it's not fair to the fans and the players to deduct points, well, it's not fair to the fans and players of Barry to kick them out of the EFL because of what their owner did, right? So I just think it's a little bit of a double standard to say that it's fair in one case for a smaller team, but not for the bigger teams. Now, if these Liverpool, Man United had points deducted, they wouldn't be expelled from the league because they're in a lot better of a financial place than Barry was when that happened, I think. But I do also agree that the biggest target should be the owners. I think if we see fines, we need to see substantial fines, not like a slap on the wrist fines that often happen in these cases where those involved are more than able to pay it. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think another interesting thing is I believe a few of these teams left the European Club Association. I think Juventus did for sure, and maybe a couple other teams as well. So I don't know what the process is like to reapply to be back in that. I don't know if there will be punishments involved in that, but I would basically my position is that I would hope what comes from this is a way to prevent it from ever happening again, maybe like the 50+1 model. But if not, I at least want a strong statement to be made by UEFA and the respective domestic leagues to at least show that they don't stand for it.
I mean, not for nothing, but Liverpool's given themselves point deductions already after today's performance. So
that's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, take what you want with that. So.
All right. So I think that does it for the Super League. We also have some Champions League and European League predictions. So here at the Yellow Card Podcast, we've been following the leagues all along. We've been doing predictions amongst all three of us. Just kind of keeping record. Haven't had so much of a luck in the whole entire tournament. Andrew and Chris are doing just fine. So Zane, if you want to take part on that, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So Chris, let's kick it off to you. You got the Champions League tally going. I think Zane's probably gonna beat the two of us anyways. So
Probably. Three of us, excuse me.
the three of
Andrew's
us,
right
sorry,
there.
Jesus.
My God.
Haven't had my Wheaties this morning.
Disrespectful. Just because he's in the demographic and he likes soccer doesn't mean
I don't
he's a
care
Met.
about soccer.
Come
at
on.
all.
Come on.
Well, Barry FC is not part of the Champions League. So
All right, here we
sorry.
go. Yep. All right, we're not getting into this. All right, so I stand as the top dog at 71-51. Diego is 63-59, and Andrew is, I can't read my writing, 40-32. We'll start off with the game Tuesday, Real Madrid hosting Chelsea. Start with Mr. Fasciano.
I like Chelsea in this one. I think when we talked about it last week, kind of giving our overall predictions, I just think that Chelsea's defense is really solid right now. And over two legs, I can't see Real Madrid outscoring them. I'm going to say a 1-1 draw actually in the first leg. Which
You know what? I
Chelsea
already wrote down Chelsea for you, so you're getting Chelsea 1. Got it.
Yeah, 1-1 draw to set up Chelsea to come home and win it in the second leg.
Diego?
I think that the clubs are fairly even at this point. Bahrain is supposed to be back into the lineup for Real Madrid, which is a huge relief for them. And I actually don't think Sergio Ramos is back on, right?
No.
I think he's out for a little bit. So with that said, Chelsea does have a lot of star power up front. They've been firing all cylinders. Christian Pulisic continues to be a target to watch, especially for Real Madrid. So I actually am going to say a 2-1 victory for Chelsea here.
Zane?
I'd go 2-1 Madrid. First of all, because I don't want any of the English clubs to play in the final.
I love it.
And second of all, I think I just fancy Real Madrid in this competition. They are the winners. They won the trophy the most, and they just have something about them when they play in Champions League. And with Vinicius Jr. in front, and yeah, I think they can win Chelsea. Chelsea is starting to enter a bit of a weird patch right now. Like they were unbeaten for so long, and then they lost. I think it was to West Brom 5-2. So it will be interesting to see. But I kind of think that Real Madrid will win this one.
I mean, we're going to see Chelsea on stream in a little bit anyways, but I do think that Real Madrid's definitely going to play them tough. They always play everybody tough in the Champions League. I agree with Andrew. I think we're going to get a 1-1 draw in the first leg here.
All right.
Move on to game number 2 of the semifinal leg 1, PSG and Man City. Start with Mr. Gallus, Diego.
Oh, you terrible human being. PSG is just firing off on all cylinders. Mbappe, Neymar, Di Maria, they're all playing just phenomenal football right now. But in the meantime, we also have a Manchester City who is playing phenomenal football too. Gondwan has been phenomenal. Phil Foden is in top shape. Sterling, Gabriel Jesus, like they're doing their own thing. Kevin De Bruyne is doing just fine. I'm actually gonna go here with a 2-2 score. I think it's a telling story of that this is probably gonna go towards the very end, towards penalties.
Zane?
I will go 1-0 PSG. I think, first of all, the same arguments for the last one, because I don't want City in final, especially City.
Yeah,
I don't want them.
Can't have City in there.
No, I don't want them to win the three trophies. So yeah, that's the first point. Second point, I just think with the quality of Mbappe and Neymar, and Man City look a bit exposed in their defense from time to time. So I think PSG will definitely score, and I think they can manage to have a clean sheet. So yeah, I think PSG is going to win this one.
Yeah, Keylor Navas has been pretty impressive. I give you that.
All right, Andrew, I will go next. I think that we will see a PSG masterclass in this game, only because we kind of low-key in the FA Cup when they played Chelsea, we kind of saw them get exposed a little bit. I think PSG and Pochettino and company will take advantage of it. I think PSG wins this actually 2-1.
Well, Chris and I are going to have the same scores for both of these games.
Let's go, Andrew.
I was
Let's
also
go.
thinking
Let's
2-1
go.
PSG. I think I see Man City as being more complete top to bottom, but I think PSG has more of that high-end, top-notch talent with the duo of Neymar and Mbappe. I think they're going to get on the board like we've seen against Chelsea, in particular in the FA Cup. Man City can get exposed with that high line, and Neymar and Mbappe have the pace and technical ability to do that, I think.
All right, so let's wrap it up quickly here, lads, and let's do European League, the Europa League. We got Manchester United and Roma versus Villarreal and Arsenal. That's on Thursday. So, Chris, you've been keeping tabs on that as well. Do you want to kick off the rounds?
Yeah, I'm 6-2. Diego 7-1. Andrew's 5-3. We'll start United and Roma. This is easy for me. Roma wins 2-0.
Thanks.
Andrew.
I think this will be a really tough one. I could see either teams winning, but I'm going to go with United 2-1 at home.
Coward. Zane?
As being a Liverpool fan, I cannot say that Manchester United will win, so I will not, and I don't think they will win. I think it's going to be 2-1 to Roma. Let's
go. And the Manchester United fanboy.
Yeah, I just don't want to get slapped in the face for being it. Especially after all this crap that's been going on. I do think this game is going to shape up much like Manchester United and Granada was like. I think Roma's got a little bit more firepower up front. I'm actually going to go with a 1-1 tied in the first leg.
Wow. That's big from a Man United fan. Villarreal, Arsenal. Start with Andrew.
Well, Arsenal didn't look too impressive yesterday against Everton.
Oh, here we go.
So I think I picked Arsenal earlier on, but I think Villarreal will take the first leg 1-0.
Zane.
I think Arsenal will win this one. I think they've been playing well in the Europa League. I think it will be interesting for them to play their ex-manager. But yeah, I think they will win this one. They will have the extra motivation with how things are happening in the league. Europa League is kind of get away from all their problems there. So I think they will try their best to get to the final. So I'd say 2-1 probably.
Diego?
I am shocked that she's willing to go for Arsenal, but not for Manchester United. Which is fine. That's fine. I'm excited to see the Unai Emery versus Arsenal kind of matchup here. It's one of the tours that I've been dying to see. I do think, though, that both teams have their own struggles, especially defensively. Both defenses are very shaky. I don't know. I actually see this game being more like another draw, maybe a 1-1 draw between the two.
Oh, you're such a coward, dude. 1-1 draws left and right. And that. So let me give you a little stat here before I give you my pick, and take 2 seconds. Arsenal in their last 2 road games in the Europa League have outscored their opponents 7-1. They're going to do it again easily. Arsenal beats Villarreal 2-0.
You do know that Villarreal has also outscored their other rivals as well, right?
Yeah, but they haven't played anybody worth noted. Just because Dynamo Zagreb beat Tottenham doesn't mean that they're a well-noted team.
Okay. All right. All right. So with both predictions in, whether Europa, with the European Super League in here, guys, I think that does it for episode 34. What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, that definitely does.
All right.
Big shout out to Zane for coming on and talking with us.
Thanks,
Yes.
guys. Thank you.
Of
Zane,
course.
where can people find you, social media wise?
Yeah, so they can find me on Twitter with the tag Zane Talks Sports, and also with the same name on YouTube as well.
All right, fantastic. You can find the Yellow Card Podcast on Twitter at Podcast Card. You can also find us on Spotify just by searching Yellow Card Podcast, YouTube. We're under the Couch Guy Sports channel. Chris, where can people find you?
On Twitter at cjones21212.
And Andrew?
You can find me on Twitter at AFASC573.
All right, great. So with that said, that does it for episode 34 of the Yellow Card Podcast. We'll see you guys all next week.